Lezli Engelking. She is in the process of developing standards for the cannabis industry. Let me repeat that. Lezli Engelking is in the process of developing standards for the cannabis industry. This is something that is very much needed. She takes us through her background with one of the big pharma companies and explains exactly what's going on in the development of cannabis standards. Okay, so we've got Lezli Engelking, straight from Arizona.
That's right. Hi, Seth.
Now, you're forever from Arizona, is that right?
Forever, almost. I've been here since I was about 4.
Aha.
So not quite local, but local in Arizona terms.
Completely. And then where were you born?
In Illinois, in central Illinois, in a small town called Paris.
Paris, Illinois, of course, which is the London of the Midwest.
Yeah, not so much.
And then just 4 years there and then out to Arizona, is that right?
Yeah, my mom was from central Illinois. My dad's from the south side of Chicago. And he was overseas when my mom had me. And when he got back, he finished up law school. And then they moved to, I believe, Texas first and then Phoenix. He came out here and started his practice out here.
Okay. Do you remember Texas at all or no? Uh-huh. And then your dad was overseas. Why was he overseas?
He was drafted.
I see.
Yes.
And
he wasn't very happy about it. He actually went up to Canada for a couple days, but came back and served his time. And thankfully is fine.
Army?
Yes.
And then where was he overseas specifically?
He was in Thailand. He actually served under someone very important and was kind of his second in command and didn't have to fight. So he did more of a desk job, which made my mother very happy as she was 8 months pregnant with me when he left and all of that.
Indeed. Who was the very important person that he was under the command of?
I couldn't tell you. I would have to ask Dad.
But do you know the person was important?
Well, I do really because I know he got to call my mother on the day I was born and be on the phone with her and had some special treatment. So that was good. Very
cool. All right. So good. So he was treated well. And then your mother, your very, very pregnant mother, could rest assured that he was being treated well. And then here comes Lezli with, honestly, we've discussed it in the past. The way that you spell your name is ridiculous.
Not my fault either. That was given to me by my mom and my dad. It was, yeah. Right? My grandfather's name was Leslie, Leslie, and he had passed not long before I was born. So I was named after him.
Excellent. And Engelking is literally, it is that way. That's the way it's spelled. This is not a stage name of any sort.
Oh, gosh, no. It's actually my ex-husband's name. My maiden name is Douglas. And truthfully, I would have gone back to Douglas. It's much easier, but I'm totally believe I will get married again. And I like the idea of taking my husband's name. So I just left it as it was because it was such a hassle to change it in the first place. When I was working at Lilly, my name was just everywhere. And I couldn't imagine having to go through that again just voluntarily if I wasn't having a big reason to do it. So I just thought, I'll just leave it for now.
So you treat last names like Arizona treats daylight savings time. Why go back and forth?
Not exactly the same, but I do think that Arizona and our time is a little bit easier to understand, although I do understand the reasoning behind daylight savings time.
Well, I mean, it's always the same time for you, certainly. But in this global economy, in the industry of cannabis, where you're dealing with many states all day and year long, it must get confusing as far as which time zone you're in and which time zone they're in and which month it is. And
it is awful.
What have you, or no?
Yeah, I mean, and especially because Denver is mountain time and Phoenix is mountain time a lot of the time, or Arizona. But when Denver switches time, they're still on mountain time, but we don't switch time and we become Pacific time. So how is that possible?
Right. So So your plight then would be to either get each state in the United States to take what Arizona has done. I think that's what you feel is the best, because you like the idea of staying at one time, and then it annoys you what everyone else
No,
does.
I really don't want to change anything with time. I actually think if you go off Greenwich Mean Time and you do the -7 and you take it in normal time zone that way, it's fine. And it makes a lot of sense, -7 or -8 or whatever. It's just when we have all these different names for the time zones that it becomes a bit confusing.
Got it. Okay. Well, then let's focus, Leslie, shall we?
We shall.
All right. And you run Focus, okay? And that is Cannabis Standards. Tell us a little bit about what the organization is doing, and then we'll go ahead and dive back into your history, and then finally get to the international pilot program. But we're going to wait until the end to talk about the pilot program.
Okay. So FOCUS is the acronym for our company, Foundation of Cannabis Unified Standards. And we, my business partner and I, Bo Keys, are working with the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, to develop the first accredited quality and safety-based cannabis standards for everyone. They're third-party cannabis standards that will span internationally. So they don't get held up in a lot of the issues we have in the United States with the state regulations being sort of in a patchwork system where business owners have trouble going from state to state, or consumers or patients have troubles going from state to state. These are standards that supersede any of the regulations, in the sense that they will work alongside with all of those regulations, and as well outside the country.
So it basically provides cover and it provides uniformity. Am I hearing that
exactly
right?
So most of the regulations that are out there right now, they address sort of, in a simplistic way, the who, what, when, where, and why of cannabis, right? Who can buy it, who can sell it, how much, what they can use it for, how it has to be done, but they don't really address any of the quality and safety standards that normal industries have, if you look at anything else at all, really. And so that's what we're trying to address.
Excellent. And James Bo Keys comes from a standards background, and so you mentioned him as your partner. So let's go ahead and get back to Arizona. You've just arrived there from Texas. You're roughly, 4 or 6 years old at the time?
Yeah, 4.
And your dad comes back from overseas at that point?
Oh, yeah.
Or
no,
how long
he had
were you
been
guys
back
without him?
quite a while. He had been back and went to Texas and with my mom, and went to law school in Valparaiso first and that sort of thing. So.
Got it. And then what kind of law did he practice, or does he practice?
He's trying to phase out of it now, but he's a trial attorney. He's a defense attorney, corporate defense attorney.
Oh, good. Okay, fair enough. So we've got him on our side.
He wants to retire, not defend me.
Got it. And then he's from the South Side. That makes him a Chicago White Sox fan. Is that right?
I think he's a Cubs fan.
Oh, is he?
I believe
oh God,
so.
we shan't talk about this any further. What about your mother? What did she do, or does she do for a living?
She is semi-retired as well, but she was the executive director for the State Mental Health Association here in Arizona for 29 plus years.
Aha. Well, there's a connection for us.
For
right?
sure. It's definitely a lot of who I am.
And what do you mean by that? So you, when did you realize what your mother was doing for a living? How old were you?
Well, I don't know if there was some spark of realization, but my parents divorced when I was probably 6, maybe 7. And so I lived with my mom. Luckily, they stayed friends and lived less than a mile apart my whole life. So I had a good experience with that. But so I was raised sort of by a single mother. And when your mother's in mental health and you're a child raised by a single parent, you're in mental health too. You have to work with her and go through all the, evening appointments and stuff like that. You sort of go along with that. So it definitely was part of my upbringing, and, going to the office was a normal thing, helping her out with stuff, charity events, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And as a little kid, what are your first memories? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. What kind of appointments were you, made privy to? What did you see?
Oh my gosh. I haven't thought about that stuff in so long. Gosh, everything. I mean, I remember helping fold newsletters and stamp things. And I remember going to groups called OK Socialites, where they would pair a mentally ill patient with a friend in the community, kind of like a Big Brothers Big Sisters program, but they would just do it in a group setting, and everyone would go have, snacks and coffee and tea. So when my mom started working at MHA, it was like a 2-person organization, and then she took it up to where, they had a board of 18 to 20 people, and it became part of the National Mental Health Association. So it was a huge transformation over the time that she was there. So things, when I was little, she was working in a tiny office and doing a lot of the same stuff that I'm experiencing, trying to build my own business, just working all the time and taking on a lot of different roles and things like that, to eventually running this huge office and hosting board meetings and 3-day symposiums and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that we kind of remain focused on the patients while, you were kind of helping your mother do what she was doing for a living. And as you went on, maybe even into your adolescence, what did you start to realize as far as the patients?
Yeah, so I guess, and that's really the whole sort of compassion and wanting to help people and building coalitions and trying to really make a difference in the lives of these people. And when my mom was part of this, she really was at the beginning of the transformation of being able to talk about mental health openly. When she started, depression it was a terrible word, and nobody talked about it out in the open. And patients that had depression or anxiety or any sort of mental illness, and not just schizophrenia or something, that still would be hospitalized today, but patients that today walk around and lead a normal life, those kind of things weren't even acceptable back then. And so she fought tirelessly to change that stigma, to get parity in mental health care and regular health care. She, worked at the legislature lobbying. She was, constantly just on TV and just doing interviews and that sort of thing, because it pretty much was just her mission to sort of change that dialogue and really get people to realize that, depression was a natural disorder that happened in the brain, and these people weren't crazy. I remember, all through my childhood growing up, and we would call somebody crazy, and that was like, it was worse than calling them a 4-letter word. I mean, you don't do that.
Right. That's not a word we use. And then, if you could just give us the context of, you mentioned the size of the office, but what were the key differences between, when you were a little kid kind of starting out with her, and then when you left for college? What had she done, I guess, is what I'm asking. What did she accomplish by that time, by that point?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the amount of lives that she touched is amazing. It makes me so proud. It brings tears to my eyes just to think about it. Sorry.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to school?
Thank you. I went to Phoenix College for a while after high school, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I went to Cal State Long Beach for a bit, and then I came back and finished up at ASU.
Okay. That's you're somewhat transient during your college career.
I've been kind of transient my whole life. I like to travel a lot.
Fair enough. And what were you studying throughout these your engagements at these various institutions?
Mostly fun, but thankfully I'm a pretty good student innately. So, my major was interpersonal communication, and I have a minor in statistics. But I didn't know. I kind of thought at first I would take over my dad's law practice and eventually get a law degree. So I focused on that for a while. And then I thought psychiatry, psychology, just because of, growing up with my mom and learning about all these, illnesses and wanting to help people. And in the end, just I found I really fit in this interpersonal communication is because I think it's just probably one of the most important skills you can have is just learning how to get your message across or get the right message across to people and understand all people, regardless of whether or not you can personally relate to them, but to be able to listen and understand others and really feel, what they're going through and that sort of thing. And so once I got into that sort of area of study, I just absolutely loved it. Yeah, it worked for me. Yeah. And then statistics just came naturally to me. I don't have any idea why that happened. I'm not a big math person per se, but I really liked the orderliness of statistics and being able to kind of figure out why things were the way they were. That's sort of how I am in everything. If you tell me to do something, I won't necessarily do it unless I understand the reasoning behind it. And so statistics kind of put reason in place.
Put reason in place. Is that what you
just
said?
It just seemed to for me. It sort of lined things up. And I just ended up getting a minor in that because I really enjoyed those classes.
Huh. Awesome. Okay. So then, you did wind up at ASU, but was your first job in London? Is that right?
Yes, it was. And it wasn't right after school either. My parents gave my sister and I for graduation a 2-week Gear Rail pass and an airline ticket and some cash and said, congratulations, go see a different country. And so we flew to London and stayed with some friends in central London. And all of a sudden, our 2 weeks were up and we hadn't left London, nor had we seen any of the sights. We'd just been playing and having a great time. And we thought, we haven't even activated our Eurail passes. So, what are we going to do? We can't go home. It's so expensive to fly over there. So we didn't. And we called our parents and we said, well, listen, there's never going to be a time in our lives where we're this free and we can do this again. We're just going to travel. We met some people and we're going to just keep going. We'll call you every week on Sunday because this is well before you carried a cell phone around. And we'll talk to you next Sunday. And so we did. And it was one of the best experiences of my life for sure. It definitely changed who I am and gave me a much broader perspective of the world. So we bumbled around Europe without a map or a plan for, a long time, 7-8 months. We saw, all of Central Europe. I think we had been in Turkey for 3.5 weeks, and we were not allowed to go to Turkey. This was during the Gulf War, and we had a bunch of soldiers over there, and my dad and my mother both were just insistent that we did not go there, and we did. So we had been hesitant to call them. Well, it's so beautiful. Everywhere we went, we had been in all these different Greek islands, and we loved them. We were having so much fun. But we kept seeing these pictures of these amazing beaches, and we're like, where is that? We need to go there. Because you have to understand, we're two Arizona girls that are used to the sun, and we've been traveling through all these places in Europe, freezing. We're like, where is the sun? So we just kept moving that way. We need to warm up. Where's the beach, And so we kept seeing these pictures that were just these beautiful beaches, and we thought, well, this has got to be the next island in Greece. But they were the southern tip of Turkey. And there was a big group of Australian friends that we met that were heading to Turkey. And so we went with them. We figured, it's safe in numbers and they were good travelers. And so we just loved Turkey. It was our favorite country by far. So amazing. And we were there for...
How come?
Oh, gosh. In fact, I just talked to somebody about this the other day. There are so many things to see there. Different things, right? You can just go in a van and drive for an hour and see something completely different. I I mean, I remember that one area, I can't remember the name of the town. I want to say it's Kusadashi, but I think that's the port. I'd have to look at my albums, but it was so amazing. The rocks there, whatever the rock is made of, it heats in the winter and cools in the summer. So like when you take a shower in these, and there's homes that are all just, it's like Flintstones land, truly. It's all built out of rock, and they're kind of in these pointed little round things. So when you take a shower in one of their shower rooms, it all steams up and warms you up, and it's so nice. It's like a steam shower. But then you come outside and you go into another room, and it's under the cave, and it's like in this other pointed thing, and it's nice and cool in there for you to sleep. And it's the weirdest looking thing in the world, but it's brilliant. I mean, these people have made these homes, and I mean, it was just amazing. We just absolutely loved it. And then we finally got down to
That's fantastic.
Yeah, everyone should go there. I mean, it's just amazing. And then the beaches, the southern coast of Turkey, southern tip of Turkey, that's where all these pictures were of these beaches. And once we finally got down there, we were just never wanted to leave. I mean, it was so pretty. And we had an amazing experience where we paid some guy, honestly, I think he was in his tidy whities and his boat was spewing out oil in the back, and he took all 14 of us, and we were almost sinking the whole way there, but he took us all the way out where you couldn't see around the end of the coastline, and he dropped us off with our backpacks and everything in the water, and you had to swim in, and then you hiked for about, I don't know, it probably took us 2.5 hours to get up to the top. And when you get up there, and we were kind of freaking out because the people that were telling us where we were going, we couldn't speak very well to. They all spoke Turkish and not a lot of English, but they waved to somebody at the top of the hill when they dropped us in the water. And when we got up there, there's this Turkish family that had this just, very simple home that had made us this amazing dinner. And you sit out and you eat with them, and they hang your clothes out to dry, and you take a shower. And on top of their home, they've laid out foam mats and sleeping bags for all of us. And you just sleep out under the stars. I mean, and it's just the most beautiful views you've ever seen. And of course, they've got big coolers full of beers for the guys and sodas and waters. And I mean, they can't speak English, but they're just so friendly and the nicest people. And you wake up in the morning when the sun comes up, and they feed you breakfast, and you pack your stuff up, and they've got a little calculator, and they type in how much each person owes you. And I think it was like $4 a person or something for this fantastic meal and night. And then we hiked just down a road back in. It really wasn't a hike, just kind of a walk back into town for an hour or something. But it was incredible. And just life experiences like that are just so amazing,
Yeah, what a trip, my God. But I guess eventually you realized that you needed to get a job.
No, I didn't.
And so how
Honestly,
did you find
Seth, I didn't. I don't know what would have happened to me. So my mom, I really didn't. We took some odd jobs along the way in Europe just to make money, but we were living off my gold card. And we truly were. And when we got out, we were trying to leave Turkey, and I don't know, the airport was striking or something that day. So we didn't leave on Sunday. We left on Monday. And unfortunately, my stepfather, so we didn't call home is the point of that. We always called on Sunday. And my stepfather had an accident and was killed the week prior on Wednesday or Thursday. And my mom had been just trying to desperately to get a hold of us, but there's no way to. So when we called on Monday, we called her from Malta, which is just, outside North Africa. And we were on our way down into North Africa. So I don't know when we would have come home. But of course, when we heard that Chris had died, my stepdad, we got straight back to the airport and tried to get home as soon as we could to make the funeral. We missed it.
What happened there? What was...
He was electrocuted. Which I know it's terrible, but I always say, I know that's so shocking, but it comes to my mouth. I don't know why.
Oh my
I
God,
know.
Leslie. And that's literally a joke I would make, by the way. But anyway.
It always comes. So Chris was the executive director for St. Vincent de Paul here in Arizona, which is how he and my mom met, which is another part of my whole personality too, because I still take an active role with St. Vincent de Paul and really believe that's important. But that's another story. So Chris, he was outside in my mother's house, and they had closed in their sunroom, and he was painting the outside, and he had brought home a generator of some sort. I'm not familiar with all this kind of thing, but at any rate, the wires, the way he had them, weren't grounded, and he stepped on wet grass. So it was terrible. My mother was inside working. It was, just a regular day, whatever. And they were going to go to lunch and ride bikes somewhere afterwards. And she just, I don't know, she said she felt something. She could just tell something was weird. And she came out and she saw him laying there, and she called 911. And of course, the news is here and everything, because they both were in the media a lot and all of that. So we got home the day after the funeral, or actually I think it was that night, like late, and missed it, unfortunately, but we were here for my mom at least afterwards, and which was good. And then shortly thereafter, all the Australians came to stay with us and take care of my mother as well.
Right. Good. How did your mom deal with that? It's obviously that was a sudden thing.
It was really sudden.
How did she go?
It was tough. Right. I mean, at first, I think, she was coping fairly well as far as, she had us back. And like I said, the Australian, there was like 5 or 6 of the guys out of the 14 group that were planning on coming into Arizona and the U.S. anyway. So they came out and stayed with her, and they were great. They were here for Thanksgiving and spent Thanksgiving with us, and just kind of, she didn't really want to do anything and was kind of going through some depression, and they just made everything, just kind of said, come on, and just wouldn't let her. But it was interesting because I think it was the first time in my mother's life where she was experiencing depression after spending her whole career talking about it. So it was a difficult time for sure.
Yeah. And sure, though, if you were to ask her in retrospect, it helped inform, how she could help others.
Yeah. I mean, it was tough. She jumped right back into her work. Probably 3 months after, and definitely had a new vengeance to what she was doing and educating and that sort of thing.
So, but then did you go back to London to work for that publishing company?
I did.
Is that what happened? Or no?
I just, like I said, I don't know when we would have come home. I really wasn't done. I felt like it was just such a great time for me. I was meeting so many people, and not just partying and having fun, but just really, the education that you get when you're traveling and doing something like that is incredible. I mean, it's so eye-opening. We grow up in the you travel abroad all the time. We just, we grow up here, and the United States seems like everything, right? It seems like anything news-wise is just about our country. And so once you're over there and you learn about that, I just wanted more. And so my mom just encouraged me to go try something. So I didn't really know what I was going to do or whatever, but I figured, why not? So I just, signed up at a community college. So I had a student card and got a student visa for a couple of years and went over there to work. And I ended up with a really amazing job. I just, as luck would have it.
What was it?
So I worked for a company called Dorling Kindersley. They make educational books and CD-ROMs for children primarily. I think they've branched out since, but I worked in their purchasing department. And the reason I ended up with that job, the lady who hired me was getting ready to go on maternity leave, and they take a 1-year maternity leave, or she was at least. And so she was looking for someone to replace her or take over for her while she was gone for a year, and she needed like 6 months to train them. So it worked perfectly for my time frame. She was half British, half American, and she liked the idea. I'm sure she liked the idea of hiring me because it was safe, right? I wasn't going to stay forever and take her job. But it was a great job for me. I had a ball, and I learned a ton, and I met so many amazing people because I was buying all of the everything IT related for this entire huge company. And I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I had to be taught, and I had to be introduced to all these people. And so all these major suppliers just would come and pick me up after work and take me to dinner and wine me and dine me. And here I am, this young girl working in Covent Garden in central London, just like, okay, well, tell me about that. Tell me about that. But working for a huge corporation, right? So I learned, a lot about business and that sort of thing too. It was amazing. So I really enjoyed that. I met my two best friends there while I was in London and had a great time. Couldn't stay forever. Visa only lasts so long.
All right. And then working for such a large corporation, though, obviously put you in the right place to get a job at Eli Lilly, right?
Yeah, actually. And I did take another job in between that, traveling throughout the U.S. So because when I came home, I thought, well, I've seen everywhere else and I would like to see the United States. So I took a job where I was training people to sell advertising, and I would travel, and I had no home for almost 2 years, and I just was tired. And I called my mom actually, and I said, Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't want to do this anymore. And she says, I think this is the right time for you to come work for Lilly. She's like, I think you'd be great at it. She's like, they're launching Prozac, and it's going to change everything for depression. And you have a good history. You've learned a lot about mental health, and your communication skills will be perfect. And honestly, at that time, all I wanted was some health insurance and a car and a good salary, and to go somewhere and not have to travel. But it worked out. And I figured I would probably be there only a year. I never had any big aspirations to work for pharma or anything like that. In my mind, I was still just a kid and trying to figure out my life. But I'm thrilled that, with my experience working there, I loved my job. I think I had a very unique experience in pharmaceuticals compared to what most people do. Because I got to work in mental health.
Why do you say that?
Well, because before Prozac, physicians couldn't treat mental illness in their offices. The only option they had if someone had any type of mental illness, regardless of how severe, was to either sort of pacify them with sedatives or to put them in a mental institution. And all of a sudden, once Eli Lilly came along and invented Prozac, and I'm certainly not saying this because I think, drugs are the best option for anything, but you have to consider if there was nothing before this and people are committing suicide or being institutionalized, all of a sudden there's a medication that people can't overdose on and they can get back to their life and they can function. And a physician can give it to them in their office, right? So we've come a long way from that now. I mean, that's forever ago. But before that, physicians didn't even know how to talk about depression. And I got to help teach physicians about that and help them change their patients' lives. And so my relationship with the customers that I talked to was really one, of an educator or a helper or, partner in their practice to help their patients. And I came home every day with a really good feeling that I had helped someone and I was changing someone's life and really doing something good. It wasn't just a sales role. I mean, yes, obviously the whole role is sales based, but I always came home with a really good feeling about what I was doing, not just pushing drugs per se, and that was the important part for me.
Right, you weren't happy because of the sales. You were happy because of what you were doing.
Yeah, I really loved it. I mean, it was a challenge. It changed every day, and I got to help. And the conversations were different every day. I loved the actual job, but I came home feeling good too, and I think that's always been really important to me.
And you didn't work with Prozac for all 12 years? You were with Eli Lilly for 12 years.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
So was that, how did it change?
My experience was also unique in the fact that I didn't ever have to change the physicians that I called on. So most people that work for a pharmaceutical company will have territory after territory after territory. So they have to get to know new physicians. I stayed with the same physicians that I started with the entire time. So you can imagine your relationship with anyone that you know over 12 years, it gets very strong. Those people became my friends, and the trust level and that sort of thing that we had was incredible. I certainly didn't sell Prozac the whole time, but I did always have the opportunity to launch medications that were changing the entire landscape of the class of medications they were in. So I was able to launch an ADHD medication that was the first one that was not a controlled stimulant medication. So children that took it had a 24-hour effect. It didn't change or blunt their personality. There wasn't sort of that on-off effect to it, which really, really changed things for the whole industry. And I also had a chance to launch the first non-stimulant, non-controlled, non-narcotic pain medicine, which was great. I mean, it was an amazing thing to be able to help treat somebody's pain and reduce it and not have them out of their head or not able to drive or change their personalities, And that experience learning about pain has lent itself tremendously to the entire cannabis world and what I'm doing now, or at least what I did with Bloom.
Yeah, well, so you went directly from Big Pharma into Bloom Phoenix. How did that happen?
It wasn't exactly directly, but yes. So I a little bit of disenchantment with the pharma industry towards the end. Regulatory changes really limited what we were able to say, whether or not we were able to help our physicians. We would have, just to give you an example, really good data. And we weren't able to tell the doctors about it because they didn't ask us. Just some silly rule. Lots of different things like that happening. So I lost this feeling of I'm helping people, and I got that feeling like I was just this high-paid caterer, or high-paid, UPS driver dropping off samples and that sort of thing. And that was never who I wanted to be. And I was, approaching 40. I had gotten divorced, and I was not liking what was going on at all within my environment at Lilly. And I just decided, you know what? I never said I was doing this for my life. This was not my career path of choice. Why am I going to stick around if I'm not getting that satisfaction and feeling like I'm helping people anymore? I need to do something different. And I decided to have about 6 months off, take a little sabbatical. I had to buy a car because I hadn't had my own car for 12 years. And I was out in California just shopping for convertibles, and some friends in Arizona were putting together the license for here and wanted me to go on as the head of the license for Bloom Phoenix. And I really was not sure about it. I don't have a background in cannabis other than, trying it a few times here and there growing up. Like you said, I had just come from pharmaceuticals. Why am I going into cannabis? My parents certainly were not thrilled with the idea at all. Why, you just got done selling legal drugs, now you're going to sell illegal drugs, that sort of thing.
But they weren't illegal, right? You guys opened the first medical marijuana dispensary in Phoenix, right? I mean,
right, but they're still federally illegal, so that was the point.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. Leslie,
there's that. Well, and to be clear, this is 2009, 2010. So the stigma around cannabis has come a long way, even in the last 5 years, right? I mean, just like it's changed with depression. In that time, I mean, people thought I was crazy to do this, including my parents. I mean, and trying to talk to people about like trying to raise money back then is so different than trying to raise money now. I mean, people just were like, "What do you mean?"
Trying to raise money 9 months ago is different than it is now. So
it is, yeah. It's just it was such a different environment. But I wasn't. I mean, I didn't even. The cannabis industry just wasn't on my radar. You know what I mean? But all of a sudden, it was legal, and these guys were asking me, and so I just agreed to listen. And to be clear, what they were proposing was I was their executive director as like a 1 hour a month board meeting. Right? And name only, we're going to pay you some money and you can just make sure we're doing things right and kind of be the face and name of this because of your background and your experience in Arizona and your reputation. And I still wasn't even sure, but then I kind of thought, well, wow, that, I could maybe take a longer sabbatical than I thought if I only have to show up once a month. That was kind of my thinking. So, but eventually, again, I told you, I've been transient for a long time.
There you go.
But I decided to listen. I mean, I guess they were just persuasive enough, as it were. But And once I started kind of doing some research and reading about it, and I came in and I talked to him, and I finally just said, okay, why not? You know what? I don't know what else I want to do right now. Really, what I love is thoroughbred racing, and I have no business getting involved in that. So do this. And so I did. And it went, the 1 hour a month board meeting they were talking about, that was the hour they were actually going to give me off every month, because it was incredible. I mean, it was just a whirlwind for the next few years. But it was instantaneously, I had that feeling back of helping people, and I was thrilled.
Right.
I just loved everything about it. And I was so lucky because I got to develop the entire Bloom brand strategy, not just for Bloom Phoenix, but for all of their dispensaries. And we built something completely medical, based totally on my pharmaceutical experience. We got to put in so many things that you would never think of, because they're just little things that maybe only a pharmaceutical rep would know. Who wants to go in and buy a medicine and then it doesn't work for them? So we launched our business with samples. We had our patient consultants wear lab coats. And when you're a first-time patient, you come in and you talk to our lead patient consultant, or our first-time patient consultant that is trained just to talk to that patient just to talk to new patients. And then he enters all of their information into the computer so that other patient consultants can look at what's going on and have their history there and look at what their goals are, so that there's continuity of care, just like there should be in regular healthcare and isn't. So if you went from doctor to doctor, as if each doctor could see their notes, which is, sort of the goal of this whole electronic medical systems that they're trying to put into play. And yeah, just everything. I mean, it was incredible. And we opened our doors, and within hours, literally, I had people coming up and telling me. I remember this couple from Minnesota that said that they had moved to Arizona. She had fibromyalgia, and he was a vet, and they left their kids. I mean, they're full-grown kids. They didn't leave kids, but because they had to come out. She was so tired of doing things illegally, and it had changed her whole life. And they were just so thrilled to find a clean place, and they loved this. And and we were growing all of our own medicine, and we were trying to do the right thing always. I mean, it was a really great experience. And to feel like that again, and realize that I was in sort of a position similar to the same thing that we were trying to do with depression, right? We were trying to change the stigma. We were trying to educate people. So we quickly, I instilled some community outreach programs, started talking, not in cannabis circles, but in outside of cannabis circles. I started reaching out to different nonprofit groups and brain and spinal cord injury associations and that sort of thing, to explain how and why this is a good option, and why they might want to talk to their patients about it, and how cannabis is different from narcotics because it works differently in your body. And we started, volunteering at St. Vincent de Paul, and just trying to make a difference and really show that cannabis is not something to be afraid of, and it does not have to have the stigma that is always attached to it. And as business owners, you don't need to be afraid of us either. I mean, we're just the same as everybody else. And I think there's such I know still I live in a very conservative part of Arizona, and I recently had to reapply for my country club membership. For whatever reason, it wasn't separated from my ex-husband, even though we've been divorced forever. And when I reapplied, I've been a member there since I was 4 years old with my parents, and then on my own for probably 20. And I had to put down that I ran Focus and that my previous business was Bloom. They're like, I literally had to go in and talk to the board about it twice. I've been a member there forever, eventually. But nobody has those hassles, especially if you've been a member there. So, the stigma's there, they know me.
Right. Well, you brought up Focus, and what was the transition? I mean, you were with Bloom until, I think last year, right? And how did that transition occur?
I left in March. So one of the things that was immediately apparent to me once I entered the industry was that the difference, right? I mean, coming from such a highly regulated industry into something where there's basically no regulations as far as quality and safety go was a huge change. I can't tell you how many times I would say, okay, like at Bloom, we developed a big edibles line called Taste Buds. And we were I was working with my designer to work on the packaging and labeling, and working with, the gentleman, Frank, who ran our kitchen. He's amazing. And we're talking about all these things, but none of it really had anything to do with like what I'm like, don't we have to check this stuff with somebody? Nobody's, isn't there a package insert? Like what is going on? So just from early on, there was all these differences, and I kept hearing about, just through industry discussions and things, like people would have problems with mold or pesticides. I mean, that's the easy one, right? And, mold or whatever kind of growth. And then they would like, well, what do we do? Or what's the best way to solve it? And there's really nowhere to go. And so something like a standards industry early on was always on my radar. And I started having discussions about it with people, and it just became more and more clear. I loved, everything at Bloom, but then as I had been there longer and they were growing and we had opened dispensaries, across the state, I felt like I had my time there had run its course. I didn't have a lot really more that I needed to accomplish, and that maybe it was time for me to move on and try and do something like this. I didn't really know exactly how I was going to do it, because certainly I don't have a background in business or anything similar to starting a business like this, but I knew that it needed to happen. And I knew that, my mental health, experience and community public health experience. I was a member of the American Public Health Association, had been listening to some of the discussions on that. And I just knew that I needed to change. And I took a month off in Australia and went to Australia to see my best friend. And I just kind of came back with a game plan and said, I'm doing this. I don't know how. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like, but I'm going to figure it out. I know I can, and sat down to do that. And so I worked on a business plan and consulted a ton of people. I talked to, some of the industry leaders. I talked to Aaron Smith, and I said, I remember calling him. I said, I think I'm going to do this. And I remember Aaron sort of laughing at me going, well, great, Lezli. Call me when you got something, because we've known we've needed this forever, and nobody wants to take it on because it's such a huge project, And I'm like, okay, well, I just want to make sure that I have your support. I don't want to work, upstream against you. I want to work with you guys. And he's like, oh yeah, no, we know. Everyone knows we need this. No one wanted to do it. So, so I have the experience of working and owning a cannabis dispensary and knowing how integral some of the things that we're developing could be, right? I mean, I know how many problems that we've come across and that could have saved us so much money or time. And truly, after going through what I'm learning and in developing these standards and working with Focus, I am so excited to show what we're doing to business owners. I mean, it really truly. So I guess I should back up. So I was working on a business plan, and I was introduced to my business partner through a friend of a friend. Actually, the guy, someone I know someone in New York who knows Bo, but didn't know Bo directly. And we kind of both put our phone conversations off for a while, because he was sort of trying to do what I'm trying to do, and how that goes. But when we finally talked, we talked for a few hours, and just were like, by the end of the call, we said, we have got to be business partners. This is amazing. We have exactly the same vision for this. We have such complementary skills, because he comes from the standards industry. He knows all about developing standards, and he was trying to do exactly the same thing I was trying to do. He just didn't have the cannabis background, or sort of the public policy background stuff. So he flew out the next day. We met with attorneys and our consultants and stuff for a week, and it's just been explosive ever since, truly. And like I was just getting into before. I
want to make sure to kind of tick off a couple boxes here. You got the ANSI accreditation. Talk about, going going in and making sure to have that?
Okay, so we do not, to clarify, have an ANSI accreditation. The way ANSI works is you have to apply to become a standards development organization. And once you go through that process, you have to submit, it's a huge application process, blah, blah, blah. And once you go through that process and are accepted, you become the standards development organization for whatever area you are applying in. And for us, it's cannabis. And so we did that last year. Now, so then once you become a cannabis standards development organization like we have to go through, develop our standards, submit all our processes and procedures to ANSI, and then they look those over and then they accredit our standards. And that whole process can take as long or as little as we determine and is necessary. So for us, for Focus, our process is we're in the middle of it. We have a standards development committee that is all over the country in each of the 7 areas of the codicils that we're working with. So cultivation, retail, infusion, extraction, pharmacology or laboratory, security, and business sustainability. So we have a committee for each. And the committees are balanced. That's something that ANSI really, really focuses on. So unlike other committees where you might just get a group of people that are in the industry together to make some opinions, our committees are created with all of the stakeholder groups. And so we did it at Focus a little bit different. We went beyond what ANSI required. So their requirement is that our entire committee is balanced. We went ahead and said each of our subcommittees was going to be balanced. So for cultivation, for instance, we might have, this is an example, I don't have anything in front of me right now because I'm not looking at any of that stuff, but a couple, 2 or 3 cannabis cultivators. We might have a citrus farmer or another type of farmer. So that would be like the industry part, the business part. Then we might have somebody from agricultural regulations in there, or somebody that's done agricultural standards. We would have somebody that is a consumer, right? So maybe they don't really know anything about growing, but they know the end product, or a patient, depending on what they're using it for. We would have somebody from the medical community or health community, because we want them to be involved in the discussions around these things. We would have somebody from sort of an efficiency or like green community. And we would have another kind of regulatory, maybe DEA, FDA, health department on there, so that there's a real balance in input. So that everything is taken into account, right? We want all of the different areas. And it's been an interesting process. And again, that's something ANSI requires, but in listening in on the calls and hearing how things are going, it's so brilliant how they designed it, because everyone at first is very afraid to speak up and say what they have to say, because it's so different from the next person's, right? I mean, a cultivator has something so different to say than a patient. Or, so on our cultivation committee, we have an OSHA representative, right? An OSHA safety representative. So the OSHA safety representative says, well, I don't know, my comment's completely different. Should I say this or not? But yes, I mean, that is the beauty of what's happening here, that all of these perspectives on each and every point are being taken into on each and every section of the standard. And it really, I mean, the synergy, it gives me goosebumps to listen to them. I love it, because it really, truly is a world-class standard that's being developed. And it's something that is going to protect this industry and build this industry into something sustainable that will last forever. And it will help business owners, I mean, to save money. I mean, the amount of problems and stuff that they can stop and prevent from happening just by putting some basic policies and procedures into place that they wouldn't have thought of otherwise is incredible. And the savings on R&D, it's so cool. I'm so impressed. Like I said, I don't come from a standards background. That's my business partner's area of expertise, but this has just been incredible to watch the development for me. I've learned so much.
Yeah. And you guys are in the process of getting ready to launch this international pilot program. Take us through exactly what's happening there.
Okay, yeah. So, and that also is part of what we are doing towards the ANSI accreditation. So, part of what we need to do, so the committees go through and develop the standards, and they come up with sort of a version 1. And once that's finished, we need to actually test that in the marketplace to make sure that the standards work, right? So, we don't want to just turn something into ANSI that says, here you go, here's what our committee thinks, but we haven't really actually run it out. And if you think about what we're developing the same thing literally as standards that tell you your car is safe or that your refrigerator runs effectively or anything else. So of course you're going to have, marketplace tests. You see all the commercials with cars where the cars are, this is an actual test or whatever, and the cars run into each other. We have to test it in the market to make sure that things work well. So our pilot program is designed to do just that. We will collect feedback from both the auditors and the participants in the program. And basically what it is we go out and businesses can participate. We select businesses to participate. They volunteer and we sign them up, and we come out and do complimentary on-site audits of their businesses to our standards, and then give them, feedback on where the areas for improvement are. They have the opportunity to come to fix them and meet conformity. And then they give us feedback. The auditors give us feedback. And then that is disseminated to all of the committee members. And they go through it together and talk about it and talk about if there should be changes and that sort of thing to the standard. And then the participants end up with, if they meet all the conformity, that is part of the deal. They have to go through and change, fix what they didn't meet. They will end up with a 1-year certification from Focus.
Excellent. And we're helping out through Cannabis Economy, right?
You are, and we really appreciate it. We have, I think, currently 14 states participating, but our goal is to do this as broadly as possible. So we're looking to get businesses of all different kinds, not just a cultivation or a retail. We're looking for labs, extraction facilities, infusion kitchens, security companies, everything. And we're looking to go not just within the states, but in different countries as well. I think we have 3 or 4 countries participating right now. I'm not really up to date. But yeah, we appreciate your help in getting the word out on this too.
Yeah, totally. Good. If for the Cannabis Economy piece, if you're a dispensary owner, infused product manufacturer, producer, at least those folks can enter the international pilot program by coming to Cannabis Economy. So there's just a slight plug, right, Leslie?
For sure. And Cannabis Economy is amazing anyway. I've been so impressed with what you guys did. I learned about it through a friend who is nothing to do with this industry and recommended it to me, that comes from the government. So
interesting.
I've been thrilled.
Okay, good. And I know that we have many friends in common, including Nurse Heather and others that have even been on this very podcast, right?
Yes. Love Nurse Heather.
What's that?
I said, I love Nurse Heather.
She's like one of the greatest people on earth, right? Am I being hyperbolic?
Not at all. She literally was my first friend in this industry and will for sure be my forever friend. I adore her. She's
a fellow Arizonian.
She is.
All right, but enough about her. This is about you. We're kind of running up against the end here. This has been great, and I think that we absolutely need to check in with you as you get the pilot program up and running, and as Focus kind of continues to grow and go. So we'll do this again in a few months. Does that work for you?
Yeah, perfect. I'd love to. And I just kind of want to say too, if there's anyone out there that's interested in working with us on the development of the standards, I know we're already in the process, but it's an ongoing process. So even once we receive accreditation, we will always need committee members. And I know there's a lot of amazing business owners out there that are interested in this kind of stuff. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our real website will be up in a couple weeks, but the one that's up there now has a contact form on it. And we're always at all the conferences. We will never have a booth, but we're always there. So look for us.
Perfect. All right, good. So then we're up to final questions. We are trying to ask everybody the same two final questions, which are, what has most surprised you in cannabis? And then the bigger question is, what has most surprised you in life? And so I feel like you might have two different answers, but the first question there, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
Oh, I have two answers.
That's fine.
So I think initially my first surprise was just how amazing and robust and incredible this plant really is. Because like I said, I had no idea. I did not come from this industry, and I continue to be just blown away by it every day. Which is obviously one of the reasons I'm dedicating my life to trying to do something about it and make it more available and change the dialogue and that sort of thing. And
you did
how it
you
helps
did kind of
people.
jump in with both feet here, by the way, Lezli.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that has amazed me about this industry is the people. I have met, I have to say, just the most amazing people. Not all of them. There's a lot of bad actors out there. And I'm not talking about how they play their businesses either. But I have been thrilled with a lot of the people I've met in this industry and their integrity and their intentions and their friendship. And I didn't expect that. It's really surprised me.
Yeah, it's a pretty good group, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, which we feel is kind of documenting what is an oral history of legal cannabis in real time. Because I met a number of these folks right away, and these are just very real and really good people. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
What has most surprised you in life?
Okay, I mean, the easy short answer is how every bumper sticker or slogan is true. Right? I think that's always the case. But I think maybe if I had known these were the same questions for everyone, I would have thought about it. Seth, you could have prepared me.
I still like the idea of we're still catching people off guard, and I kind of like that,
Okay. So you're definitely catching me off guard. I'm not sure if I'm articulating this properly because you are catching me off guard, but I think that it's something that you're not in control, that there's no plan, and that you're just fine. I'm a planner. I'm very organized and detail oriented, and I feel better when I know what's going on and everything. But I'm learning the older I get that I'm full of it. I have no idea what's going on, and it doesn't really matter anyway. And I just do the best I can and make sure that my integrity and my intentions are always pure. And that's all we can do. But, life is life. I don't know if that's articulated properly. But
well, keep getting up, dusting yourself off, and taking the next step forward. Is that the sentiment?
Kind of. I feel like it's just, I feel like I really truly believe that I ended up right where I am today, doing this interview with you and doing, building this focus and working to help, protect the public and patients and business owners and build this industry up. And you couldn't have paid me to believe that I would be here. This is so far-fetched from where I ever thought I would be or wanted to be. And I'm thrilled. I couldn't be happier. And I feel like everything in my body and everything in my experience in life brought me right here.
Well, we're happy to have you. And we've, run a few events where the main central message was, well, we must have standards in this industry. And enter Lezli Engelking. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you so much for partnering up with James Bokeys and his magnificent beard. And again, we'll check in with you in just a little bit. How about that?
All right. Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it.
That's a good person doing a good thing. Those standards are extremely important, and the International Pilot Program is a very big deal. So we're very pleased to be just a little part of what Leslie's doing, and happy to have her here. And again, we will absolutely be checking in with her somewhat regularly to give you updates.